The 12 apostles of Jesus Christ were modest men, chosen from varied backgrounds. Some were fishermen, others farmers or craftsmen, but all shared one essential characteristic: an exceptional faith that pushed them to abandon everything to follow their master. By becoming witnesses to the resurrection of Jesus, they were invested with a sacred mission, that of spreading the gospel throughout the world. However, this mission was not without challenges. Persecuted, imprisoned, and often martyred, these men endured immeasurable suffering out of fidelity to their faith and their love for Jesus Christ. Their exemplary dedication has remained engraved in history as a source of inspiration for believers throughout the centuries. Contrary to popular belief, the apostles did not share a common destiny. Each of them followed a unique path, marked by stories that were sometimes tragic, mysterious, or surrounded by controversy. Although their lives and deaths differ, they are united by their unwavering commitment to the work of Christ. In this video, we will explore the stories of their lives through biblical texts, church traditions, and historical writings. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and stay with us until the end to discover the fascinating stories of the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ. Let's begin. Let's start with Simon Peter, often thought of as the leader of the apostles. His life is a testament to an unwavering faith and a deep dedication to preaching the gospel. After receiving the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, Peter became a key figure in the early church in Jerusalem. He preached courageously, attracting many believers despite constant threats of persecution. His zeal for Jesus led him to travel widely, spreading the divine word in various regions until he reached Rome during the reign of the Emperor Nero, known for his cruelty towards Christians. Tradition records that Peter was arrested and condemned to crucifixion around the year 64. True to his humility, he is said to have asked to be crucified upside down, considering that he was not worthy to die in the same way as his Lord. His tragic death embodies a powerful testimony of faith and devotion, inaugurating a series of martyrdoms among the apostles. Let us now turn to John, brother of James, and also known as John the Evangelist. Unlike most of the apostles, John did not die a martyr. Although his life was punctuated by many trials, John is often described as the disciple whom Jesus loved, a proof of his closeness to Christ. He is considered the author of the Gospel of John, 3 epistles, and the book of Revelation. After Jesus' resurrection, John played a central role in the founding of the early church, particularly in Asia Minor. During the reign of Domitian, he was exiled to the island of Patmos, where he received the visions described in the Apocalypse. Tradition also records that he miraculously survived an attempted poisoning, an event seen as evidence of divine protection. Freed from his exile, John spent his final years in Ephesus, in present-day Turkey, where he continued his work of evangelization until his natural death, becoming the only apostle not to die a violent death. His unique life demonstrates that the journey of faith can be just as meaningful without martyrdom through perseverance and writing. James the Greater, brother of John and son of Zebedee, was one of Jesus' closest disciples. He was present at key moments, such as the Transfiguration and Jesus' agony in the Garden of Gethsemane. Responding to Christ's call, he left his life as a fisherman to embrace his sacred mission. According to the Acts of the Apostles, James was the first apostle to be martyred, executed by the sword on the orders of Herod Agrippa I around the year 44. This tragic martyrdom illustrates the brutal persecutions suffered by the early Christians, but also their unwavering faith. Traditions report that his relics were taken to Spain, where he became the country's patron saint, inspiring the famous pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. Philip, meanwhile, was one of the first to respond to Jesus' call. A native of Bethsaida, he shared his hometown with Peter and Andrew. The Gospels describe Philip as a thoughtful man, asking direct questions that revealed his quest to understand Jesus' teachings. He plays a role in several notable episodes, including when he presents Jesus with a young boy carrying 5 loaves and 2 fish, a prelude to the miracle of the multiplication of the loaves. Tradition records that Philip continued to preach the gospel in remote areas, including Phrygia, where he is said to have met a tragic fate, martyred for his faith. Philip, one of the first disciples called by Jesus, is a key figure in the gospel accounts. Originally from Bethsaida, the same city as Peter and Andrew, he is described in the Gospels as a thoughtful person, often seeking understanding. During the miracle of the multiplication of the loaves, Philip plays an important role by alerting Jesus to the presence of a young boy carrying 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. After Jesus' resurrection and Pentecost, Philip, like the other apostles, devoted his life to spreading the gospel. Christian tradition records that he traveled to Phrygia in present-day Turkey to spread the good news. Accounts of his martyrdom vary, but one of the most widespread traditions states that he was crucified in Hierapolis, Phrygia, around AD 80. Some accounts specify that he asked to be crucified upside down, out of humility, while others mention methods such as stoning. Regardless of the exact account, his sacrifice remains a powerful testimony to his unwavering commitment to his faith. Thomas, known for his initial doubts about Jesus' resurrection, is another apostle whose transformation is deeply inspiring. Sometimes called Doubting Thomas, he refused to believe in the resurrection until he saw and touched Jesus' wounds with his own hands. This experience marked a turning point in his faith, and he proclaimed Jesus as "my Lord and my God," affirming his recognition of Christ's divinity. After Pentecost, Thomas is said to have traveled farther than most apostles, going as far as India to establish Christian communities. Today, Christians in India, particularly those in the Chennai region, claim a direct spiritual heritage from Thomas. According to tradition, he was martyred in Mylapore, near Chennai, pierced by a spear while praying. His tomb has become a place of pilgrimage for Christians, recalling the universality of his message and the depth of his faith. Matthew, also called Levi, was a tax collector before becoming a disciple of Jesus, a role often scorned by Jews for his collaboration with the Romans and practices associated with fraud. However, Jesus' call, "Follow me," changed his life radically. Matthew left his profession and embraced a life of total devotion to Christ. He is traditionally credited with writing the first gospel, intended primarily for a Jewish audience, highlighting how Jesus fulfilled Old Testament prophecies. After Pentecost, Matthew preached in areas such as Ethiopia, Macedonia, Syria, and Persia. Accounts of his martyrdom vary, with some stating that he was speared in Ethiopia, others that he was burned alive or beheaded. These accounts, while varied, attest to his zeal and unwavering commitment to spreading the gospel. Bartholomew, also known as Nathanael, is described by Jesus as a true Israelite in whom there is no guile. This testimony of Jesus reflects Bartholomew's sincerity and integrity from his earliest days as a disciple. Although he is rarely mentioned in the Gospels, Christian traditions credit Bartholomew with playing an important role in evangelism, particularly in India, Armenia, Ethiopia, and Mesopotamia. In Armenia, he converted King Ptolemaeus to Christianity, but this conversion provoked hostility from members of the royal court. Bartholomew was subjected to a gruesome death, traditionally dismembered alive and then beheaded. His martyrdom is a poignant example of the extreme challenges the apostles faced in proclaiming their faith. Today, his relics are venerated in many places throughout the Christian world. Finally, James, son of Alphaeus, often distinguished as James the Less, is less documented in the Gospels, but his role in the early church is undeniable. The distinction between him and James the Greater, son of Zebedee, is necessary because of the repetition of certain names among the apostles. James the Less is mentioned as a fervent defender of the faith, playing a crucial role in the development of the early Christian communities. James, son of Alphaeus, often called James the Less to distinguish him from James the Greater, remains a discreet but essential figure among the apostles. Although less mentioned in the Gospels, his role in the early church is significant. James is presented as a man of deep and abiding faith, his spiritual legacy sometimes overshadowed by the more prominent figures of the apostles. However, his unwavering commitment to Jesus and his contribution to the development of the early Christian communities testify to his faithfulness and zeal. Christian traditions record that James preached in Judea and the surrounding regions, working with quiet but effective ardor. Regarding his martyrdom, the most widespread accounts indicate that he was thrown from the pinnacle of the temple in Jerusalem for refusing to deny his faith, then stoned and finally finished off with a club. This tragic outcome highlights not only the brutality of the persecutions, but also the strength of his conviction. Simon the Zealot, also known as Simon the Canaanite, is another intriguing figure among the apostles. His nickname, Zealot, may indicate a past affiliation with a Jewish nationalist movement opposed to Roman occupation. Simon's transformation into a disciple of Jesus underscores the unifying power of the gospel, which transcends political and social divisions. Although the Gospels provide few details about his life, Simon stands out as an example of diversity among the apostles, illustrating the inclusion of people with diverse experiences. After the resurrection and Pentecost, Simon devoted his life to evangelism. Christian tradition records that he traveled to Egypt, North Africa, and perhaps Persia, often in the company of Jude Thaddeus. Accounts of his martyrdom vary, but one of the most widespread traditions claims that he was sawn in two, an act of cruelty that reflects the extreme challenges faced by early Christian missionaries. Jude Thaddeus, also called Jude to avoid confusion with Judas Iscariot, is another apostle whose role is often underestimated. Although not mentioned much in the New Testament, Jude is the presumed author of the Epistle of Jude, a text that exhorts believers to stand firm in the face of heresy. According to the Gospels, Jude was one of Jesus' brothers or close relatives, reinforcing his connection to Christ. After the resurrection, he preached in regions such as Syria and Persia, often in the company of Simon the Zealot. His martyrdom, like that of Simon, is variously reported, with some sources stating that he was killed with an axe or a club. His ultimate sacrifice is a poignant testimony to his dedication to the cause of the gospel. Matthias, chosen to replace Judas Iscariot after his betrayal and suicide, holds a special place among the apostles. Chosen by lot from among those who had followed Jesus from his baptism to his ascension, Matthias became a privileged witness to the life and teachings of Christ. Although the New Testament does not provide further details about his ministry, Christian traditions record that he preached in Cappadocia and the regions around the Caspian Sea. Accounts of his martyrdom vary. Some say that he died of old age after a long and fruitful ministry, while others say that he was stoned and beheaded for his faith. Regardless of the version, Matthias embodies the continuity and fullness of the apostolic mission. Finally, Paul of Tarsus, although not one of the original 12 apostles, is often considered an apostle because of his instrumental role in the spread of Christianity. Initially a persecutor of Christians, Paul experienced a dramatic conversion on the road to Damascus, where he was blinded by a divine light and heard the voice of Jesus. After his baptism, he became one of the most influential missionaries, preaching the gospel throughout the Roman Empire. His missionary journeys, recorded in the Acts of the Apostles, and his epistles, which form an essential part of the New Testament, bear witness to his passion and unwavering commitment. Paul died a martyr in Rome, probably under Nero, where he was beheaded, his Roman citizenship sparing him a more cruel death. Through his many missionary journeys, Paul of Tarsus played a decisive role in the expansion of Christianity around the Mediterranean basin. He established churches in strategic regions such as Asia Minor, Greece, and according to tradition, Rome. His epistles, addressed to the Christian communities he founded or visited, form an essential part of the New Testament and continue to influence Christian theology throughout the ages. The end of Paul's life was marked by a series of trials. After his arrest in Jerusalem, he was imprisoned in Caesarea before being transferred to Rome to stand trial as a Roman citizen. According to Christian tradition, Paul was beheaded during the reign of Emperor Nero between AD 64 and 67. His death, while gruesome, sealed his witness as an apostle of the faith he had once sought to destroy, transforming his legacy into a source of strength for believers. We now come to the conclusion of this captivating journey through the lives of the apostles, the founding figures of Christianity. Their stories, filled with faith, courage, and devotion, remind us of the transforming power of the gospel and its impact on the lives of those who choose to follow its teachings. Despite persecution, suffering, and challenges, they carried God's word throughout the world, leaving behind a timeless testimony of faith and unconditional love. These stories continue to inspire and guide us, reminding us that the spiritual path, while demanding, is rich with meaning and eternal rewards. Whether you are looking for answers, comfort, or inspiration, remember that the apostles are living examples of the power of faith and divine love. Friends, have you ever realized how the enemy tries to turn you away from everything that can bring you closer to God? He uses social media, negative thoughts, and even discouragement to keep you away from the truth. But here, on this channel, you will find messages that elevate your faith and protect you from these traps. Subscribe now, because every click is a step further in your spiritual journey. Don't let the enemy win. Thank you for walking with us through the lives of the apostles. May their example inspire you to live your faith with as much courage and devotion. See you soon for new spiritual explorations.